Greetings. Welcome to the Black Doctors Talk podcast. I am Dr. Kimberly West, host for this episode and member of the Black Doctoral Network. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Paul G. Wright, who is an associate professor at California State University Stanislaus in their Master of Social Work department, where he teaches across the social work curriculum in the social work program. Welcome, Dr. Wright. It's a pleasure to speak with you today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm honored to be here. Certainly appreciate it.
Yes, I'm looking forward to our conversation. So, to start off our conversation, I would like for you to start by telling our viewers and our listeners a little bit about your background. Where does it all begin for you?
Thanks. It's interesting. I'm a social worker. My master's degree is in social work, but initially I was interested in psychiatry. And I wanted become a psychiatrist and a psychologist. And then I wanted to become, I actually enrolled in a marriage, family, child counseling program. And I wanted to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist because I've always been interested in how people think and intrapsychic phenomena, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I also have a social justice an interest in social justice. And so, long story short, so social work became an ideal marriage between me being able to help people with psychological issues and those kinds of things, and also do the work that I like to do around social justice issues and oppression.
Can you tell us? That's very fascinating. So, your social work, your social justice. Can you talk a little bit more about that? So, what's driving you? What's your passion?
Well, I like helping people. I believe, the clinical part, I believe that people have, let's say, concerns, psychological issues and concerns and things that may impinge on how they function on a daily basis. But I also know that there are a lot of things that are not psychologically based, but they're rooted in oppression and they're rooted in discrimination. And so not just having a clinical focus allows me to work with the whole person. And social work is a profession that affords me that particular opportunity to help people who need more than just clinical work or counseling, so to say, in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, can you talk a little bit more about when you were saying the racial inequality or racial injustice, and what your work involves with that?
Well, for instance, as we know, there's a lot of systemic racism. I hope we know there's a lot of systemic racism in society. And a lot of clients and a lot of people that I've worked with over the years, they're not just, they need help in navigating the system. They need help in fighting systemic oppression, whether they're in an agency or an academic setting, whether they're children, whether they're family. And so a lot of my focus is geared towards helping systems do what it's supposed to do for people in terms of delivering services in a just way, in terms of even just if you're receiving outpatient mental health services, somebody should be able to come to your office and be treated with respect. And so a lot of my work and a lot of things that I think about are centered on those kinds of things.
Who has had a tremendous impact on your career?
Who or what?
Hmm.
Who? A couple of things. When I started out in the profession as an assistant professor, just starting my journey, there was a professor by the name of Dr. Terry Jones, who I was honored to be kind of like taken under his wing and mentored. His research agenda, which all professors should have research agendas, was race, gender, and inequality. And I saw how I saw his research, I saw his scholarly writings. He also let me co-author a particular article with him at one point. But more than that, I also saw how he fought in the academic setting for African Americans in particular, so that African Americans could get jobs in the academic setting. And so he helped me with that. He helped me see how you can actually fight in an academic setting as a Black man. And also I saw his writings and his thought, his thoughts about poverty and his thoughts about oppression. So that was someone who kind of initiated me into academia.
All right, and so you're talking about the academy and some of these struggles. What are some of the challenges that you faced in your career, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I appreciate that. And I'm going to go back to Dr. Terry Jones. One of the things that Dr. Terry Jones did was when he and I met, and I guess he was screening me to see if I was appropriate. And I didn't quite get it at the time, but he said he didn't really realize what he was getting into when he was going into academia and into the academy, and that the academy is a very subjective place and is also a very racist place. So when you intersect subjectivity with racism, it's a very challenging place for a Black person. I heard that, and and of course I understood racism, but once I started the tenure process, I really began to understand what he was talking about. With all due respect, I discovered that the academy was much more racist than I had ever imagined. And so a lot of my advocacy has actually been in the context of my workplace and being involved on campus and doing probably some of the work that he was doing.
Are there any specific challenges, anything that you've particularly encountered that maybe you can speak to? Any incidents that have directly happened to you that could be something that those who are listening to this or watching this could say, what can I gain from this? What can I learn from this? Because if they too choose to enter the academy or go into academia, that's a little nugget that they can have in their pocket, to keep in mind that will help them to be successful.
Yeah, I could appreciate that question. I think that a common experience that faculty of color experience, particularly Black faculty, in a nutshell, as when I'm in the classroom, just having conversations about social justice and racism, which is a part of my research agenda, which is also part of the work that I do. It's not like I'm in class talking about something that's incongruent with the content, right? So when I'm having these kinds of conversations in the classroom, there's a lot of reaction from white students, a lot of anger, and so there's a tendency for those students to inappropriately challenge you and also believe that they can report you, for you just doing your job. And so what happens as a tenured person, every year you have to engage, you have to submit a portfolio, and this portfolio that you submit, it has course evaluations in it. So you're having to explain all of these bizarre comments that's coming from racist students. You're having to explain it. You're having to educate your colleagues and educate the environment about you're not a poor teacher. But when you have these kinds of conversations in a white context, these are common reactions. And so one of the greatest challenges that I have had and I continue to have is having to explain and educate the academy about my experiences and who I am, and that I don't need to be referred to. They call it there's a place on campuses that you might need to be referred to help you with your teaching, improve your teaching. And so I don't need a referral. What I need is for the academy to understand the context that I'm working
in. And so what is one thing you wish you had known earlier in your career?
I think there's a couple of things. I think number one, and I know we've been kind of going down this rabbit hole for a while. I think the academy is seen as a liberal space, and I didn't realize how challenging it could be for a Black person, in the academy. And I think also the kind of academic preparation that it takes to go into the academy is important to know. Like in terms of the doctoral program that you are at, are they teaching you to have a clear and defined pedagogical philosophy that you could practice in the classroom? Are they teaching you the importance of funding and all these things that it take to be tenured? So those were some things that I didn't quite know or understand, coming into the academy to the degree that I know now.
Has there ever been a time since you've experienced these challenges or, just the difficulty of, as you were saying, the intersections of race and academia, have you ever just wanted to give up and maybe pursue something else, or you just continued on?
I think that's a good question. I think when I decided to come to the academy, I actually left my other profession and came over. Some people, what they do, they keep one foot in one door, and then they come into the academy. And when I came over into the academy, and I started having those challenges, I was apprehensive and surprised, and I did have thoughts about maybe whether or not this is right for me, or I had some thoughts like that. I had moments like that, but overall, I had decided that this was something that I wanted to do because I saw the value of my voice in the classroom, and I felt like the things that I was bringing in the classroom to students and to a department were unique, and that if I was to not pursue this, my voice and the kind of pedagogy that I was bringing to the academy, and this is not to be arrogant, but there aren't a lot of people, and I've worked at 3 different universities, and all the places that I've worked, they were not bringing it like I was bringing it. I was actually preparing students, for real war, not fake war. And so I actually believe that I prepare students to do the work. And so with that said, I was determined to go forward. And also I felt like a lot of African Americans and people of color needed someone like me, not because I was just a black face in a high place, but because of the philosophy, the principles, and the rigor and the integrity that I was bringing to the academic space.
What is one of your biggest accomplishments to date?
I think getting tenure.
Okay.
I am a tenured professor. It takes, tenure overall is a 6-year process in most schools. And so getting tenure was a big process. It was one of the most, tenure anywhere is not easy. In some places it's more complicated than others, depending on where you go, where you work. But I think getting tenure, and actually getting tenure, promoted from assistant to an associate, was one of the biggest accomplishments, that I've had in academia.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Did you experience any of those kind of racial incidences? Did you have any challenges along that pathway to tenure that you had spoke about in some of your, previous responses in regards to the challenges in academia?
I did. I had a lot of challenges. Like for instance, I was fortunate to have another mentor at one of the schools that I was at, and he was able to help me understand the context that I was working in. Like academia gaslight people. Like it makes you see something and they say, well, it's not quite what you think. And so he and I often had conversations, and they moved the goalposts, like in academia, like the goalposts for some people, it's in the same place, but the goalposts for you, we're going to move them out a little bit more, like for instance, I recall writing an article to the, I produced, let's say, a couple of articles to the same journal, and one of the criticisms in my tenure process was, you're writing to the same place, right? But there's no rule that says I can't publish in the same place. There's no rule that says, even when we looked at the rubric that the university used, there's nothing that says I can't write 3 articles to Journal A. Or one, right? And so anyway, that was one of the things that they tried to. That was one of the barriers that were put up, in the tenure process. And so if they're trying to take away those articles, then that means I'm not meeting certain standards, which means I can't get tenure. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
So they were trying to take away my work. They were also trying, I've also, since you want to go there, you push me down that rabbit hole. They were also trying to say that some of the places that I was publishing were predatory journals, and I was paying to get articles published in these places, which wasn't true. In fact, the place where I was publishing was a place that the university that I was at selected. And so they selected this place. They recruited us on campus and said, here's an opportunity to publish. So a colleague created this space where we could all submit articles to this place. And so how is it that on one hand, this information, this place is not acceptable, but on the other hand, an employee from the university, this was a university sanctioned thing. It doesn't make sense. But those are some of the roadblocks.
Wow. And yet you persevered, right?
Yes, I persevered.
Why you are here today, sir, which is wonderful.
So anyway, but I'm just, you say you but it's just real. It's just right.
It is. It's real. It's life. It's what happens. And unfortunately, yes, it is some of our experiences. And so one of the ways in which we can overcome it, right, is when we talk about it, when we discuss it, when we put out in the open. And as you're doing here, make others mindful, and just be aware. As you said, you trained some other students and prepared them for, as you said, what it is. That's very, very important to do that. And so thinking along kind of that same vein, thinking about your experiences, what advice would you give to someone who wants to pursue a career similar to yours?
I would suggest, let's, for instance, find somebody who can mentor you, find somebody who's transparent about the process. If possible, depending on where they are in their academic journey, try to co-author something with that person. I would even be willing to invite somebody into the classroom so they can either watch me if it was appropriate, or depending on where they are in their career, I would even suggest that they come and do a presentation or do some kind of teaching in my classroom, which I can make space for something like that, so that they could put that on their curricula vitae. And I would also suggest that depending on where they are in their in their journey, that they could partner with somebody in my position and do presentations and do conferences and co-create together. And these are things that they can put on their curricula vitae, because some schools are better at helping students create that kind of curricula vitae, whereas some doctoral programs don't do that. You're on your own. So it depends on which kind of doctoral program you are in.
Wow. Yes. Yes.
Because when I got into academia, I didn't realize it, but they call it piggybacking. Like you could piggyback on a professor's research, right? In the school that I went to, you didn't necessarily piggyback on somebody's research, particularly if you were a Black person, right? And so anyway, but so what I would do is I would suggest that somebody find somebody that they can do that with.
Okay. No, I think that's great advice. Because I think that mentorship thing is important too. Like as you were just speaking of, even when you said, even in your own school experience, what skills would you say have helped you be most successful?
And thank you for that question. I would say a skill that helped me to be most successful is really the ability to think. It's not even, and that which is probably considered a soft skill. I think because if you could think, you can navigate, and if you can navigate, you can assess and you can adjust, and you can prepare accordingly. So I would actually ask, I think thinking and being able to think and assess and understand where you work and who you're working with will take somebody a long way in this profession.
Wow. And so I know we've talked about some of the barriers, some things you've experienced, some challenges, but I want to know, what are you most proud of in your career?
Okay, thank you. I think several things, but one of the things that I'm most proud of is I've had an opportunity to work with students, and I've recently helped one student to translate her thesis into a published article. I co-authored with one student at another university. And so, so that's one part. And the other part is when I'm in class teaching, and because my research agenda is social justice and race and all those kinds of things, when students have aha moments and they understand the value of what I'm teaching, and they actually go out and begin to practice it, and they actually began to do it. Those are some of the things that I'm most proud of.
Wow. I really can hear in your experiences the passion that you have for connecting with students.
Mhm.
And I think that's great because sometimes in academia and the university, you don't get to have those connections.
Right.
I think that's really great because again, just hearing your desire to work with students to empower them is phenomenal. So as we wind down our interview, I want to ask you some questions. Just what keeps you engaged in your work, or about what keeps you engaged in your work. And so, what inspires you?
I think, it's knowing that people who have come before me and they paid a significant price for me to be here. I am always mindful of the sacrifices that people have made. I'm mindful of that. I'm living a lot better than what my mother had lived.
Mm.
And so that's what's engaged me. That's what's inspires me. And that is part of what I would like to leave behind. And I'm hoping that other people won't forget that there are other people who made it possible for them to be where they are. And
Right.
that is what inspires me.
Hmm. And how do you define success?
I see success as a process and not an endpoint.
Mm.
And so I don't look at I've done X, Y, Z as success. I just see it as a process. I see the journey as success, an opportunity to be here, for instance, to be connecting with you in this moment, disseminating this information, having this conversation, and hopefully a broader audience will be able to hear this and get some help. That is part of success to me.
And so, when you think about your goals and what you want to achieve, what steps do you take to reach your goals?
It's reflection and action, just really many steps. Like it may sound really basic, like what do I need to get done today? Like today I was thinking about this interview and how can I have an effect in this interview. And so I see this as a successful moment because I've actually been wanting to get, to be more involved with BDN. So I see this as a good step. And so just little mini steps is how I do it.
Yeah, it's baby steps, right? No,
Baby steps. That's it.
anything like going from A to Z, right? Nobody.
Right.
I have never done that. Have I tried? Absolutely. Been successful? No. And so, can you talk a little bit about how your affiliation with BDN has helped you personally and or professionally?
I appreciate it. I recall two colleagues introduced me to BDN. We did a conference a year or two ago, and I just met a lot of scholarly people, a lot of exciting Black people who were great thinkers and had a lot of great ideas. And so that network was wonderful. I think the other part of it is a lot of the content that I'm interested in, BDN was and is a perfect place to have those kinds of conversations. Like in my discipline, if I was having very raw conversations about race, first of all, my paper may not get accepted. And second, I actually tried to do that at another space, and everybody walked out the room. And so BD, so I'm just hey, it is what it is. So BDN is a place where I can actually have authentic conversations, and I could get my content out in a place where people get it, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I like to say that being at a BDN conference is similar to being at home, right? You have those, as you were saying, conversations in a safe space where you can say, I'm not crazy, right? No, like, this is a real thing. And so my final question is, what's next for you? So what is next for Dr. Wright?
Thank you so much. I'm currently working, there's an article that I've been working on. It's basically talking about the experiences of African Americans and students of color in a MSW program. It's talking about the racial microaggressions that they're experiencing in the program. So I'm looking to get that out, and I'm also looking to do some more conferences and things like that. But that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Nice, nice. Well, Dr. Wright, I cannot thank you enough for joining us this afternoon. It has truly been a pleasure to speak with you. Can you please tell our listeners and our viewers where they can go to learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
I appreciate it. I can be reached at my email is pwright@csustan.edu. You can reach out to me, particularly if I'm also interested in creating a think tank for with Black people. Think so we could get together and have conversations around race. We can probably co-create some articles and also co-create some conferences that we can do for BDN. So I'm hoping. So I'm looking for people in different disciplines or even the same discipline, where we can come together and we could create something together. So if you're interested in that, or you want to have just some dialogue, look me up.
All righty then. Well, thank you again. Please be sure to stay connected to the Black Doctoral Network and connect with us on all of our social media platforms. Thank you for joining us today for the Black Doctors Talk podcast. We hope you will join us again next time. But for now, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and definitely tell a friend.